Hey, is the political YouTuber who sometimes talks about geek shit doing a video about the Joker? Hmm. 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 1 second.
Fletcher's on. Red alert. Phasers stand by to fire on my order.
Okay, look, I'm not the first to say it, and I won't be the last. Heath Ledger's Joker is so many miles above any other live-action counterpart, the contest will probably never be close for the next 50 years. Part of that is probably due to Ledger's untimely death. We can never go back and know what he was thinking as he was filming. While we still have Nolan's personal notes in writing him, just looking at literally everything else in the Nolan trilogy shows that the Joker was a step above everything else. It's the truest state of death of the author. We can never know the full story of original intent with this character. Alright, we got the obligatory reference for perhaps the greatest comic book movie performance of all time out of the way. Good. Because I get to speculate now on why I think he gripped the national culture so hard. Because while the movie is very blatant in what it's about, it even tells us directly, this is the battle for Gotham's soul.
Until they get a good look at the real Harvey Dent. Huh? And all the heroic things he's done. You didn't think I'd risk losing the battle for Gotham's soul in a fistfight with you.
But of course, the thinly veiled stand-in for New York City is what sells this trilogy, and that idea, that it is about our souls, our choices. I didn't see Batman Begins until 2015. I saw it immediately after The Dark Knight Rises because the latter had such a disappointment to me. I had to know how the trilogy stood up for me on the whole. If you're curious, I settled that The Dark Knight is the exception, not the rule. I mean, I knew Batman Begins had a reputation for being the gritty Batman film, but there's literally a scene where he summons a swarm of bats with a supersonic duck call. It is as ridiculous, at least, as the Burton films. Dark, but not hard logic, which is why The Dark Knight stands out. I was pushed into seeing The Dark Knight by my friends, who said I absolutely had to see the Joker. He gave some of the same speeches I did. Here's a character, they told me, you will love. The fact that I was able to call how the Joker was going to pull the switcheroo on Batman at the midpoint of the movie doesn't really serve my distancing from the character. And while I don't think it's ever been proven, I am still pretty confident in stating that all 3 remotes in the boat climax blew up both boats. But why I think Ledger's Joker sticks with us so much is that he was right. He took the pessimistic view of society, obviously, but his conclusions about Gotham were, at their core, not any different from Batman's.
You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan. Even if the plan is horrifying. If tomorrow I tell the press that, like, a gangbanger will get shot, or a truckload of soldiers will be blowing up, nobody panics. Because it's all part of the plan.
You can write this off as the intractable needing to be normalized in the human psyche. I think the film disagrees. This is exactly Batman's logic for being Batman. That crime in Gotham has become part of the plan, and that everyone had to become so numb to it that had been allowed to infect every aspect of the city. Batman's spin, of course, is that the greater whole of society is held in check by a few bad guys. He can show them a better way, and Harvey Dent takes that idea and runs with it. If they can just lock up all the bad guys, then everything will be fine. They want to show Gotham that the plan can change, or rather, that the plan has been corrupted, and that the citizens are slowly coming around to that idea too. As the movie tells us, the film's central conflict is the war for Gotham's soul, embodied by Harvey Dent. The Joker wins. He turns Harvey into Two-Face by offering him a new plan. A new normal. Random chance. Fairness. Harvey doesn't necessarily snap, at least not as he's presented here. All that happens is that he used to have a plan. All the bad guys would be locked away, and all the good guys, people like him and Rachel, would live happily ever after. But the film tells us that the Joker was right. If it's been a while, here's a refresher on the blink and you'll miss it line from the interrogation scene.
He's making a choice.
Where are they?
Choose between one life or the other.
Killing is making a choice. So when the Joker is talking about that truckload of soldiers dying and observing that nobody panics, the film is drawing the connecting line for us that society chooses that with the plan. That isn't to say how he uses this to manipulate Harvey is necessarily correct, but the thread that Harvey draws together is that Rachel died as the result of a choice. Whether explicit or implicit, that choice was made by somebody, which is why Harvey removes choice from the equation. He forms a new plan, one that won't punish the good people.
Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's fair.
It's not about what I want. It's about what's fair!
Of course, it won't punish the bad either, but it's interesting that Harvey seems to break his own rule after Batman shows up and tells him this.
What happened to Rachel wasn't chance. We decided to act. We three.
And the film has been telling us repeatedly, being Batman has consequences. Being a cop has consequences. Being a DA has consequences. Or as Alfred tells it, the world had a plan. Batman disrupted that plan, and they lashed out in a panic. And this brings us to Fox News. I'm just going to use Tucker Carlson as our case example, much like we did with Carl in the Chinese virus video. But these points are popping up all over the right-wing media. I'm just showing you the most digestible form. I'll also share some of the deep dives into Twitter twattery, some personal favorites will pop up over the screen right now. And on the heels of Donald Trump disavowing the scientific models about COVID-19 in his last press rally, the right wing has decided that we need to get more blatant about the plan. And what if we just chose to let it all go to hell? What if we're just freaking out because one little mayor might die? What if we just pretend everyone dying is a truckload of soldiers? Wouldn't that be great for the economy?
Though unfortunately on the question of total deaths, the model has been more accurate, though it still tends to overshoot. For example, yesterday the IHME predicted 784 deaths for New York. The state finished the day with about 600. For the entire country, the model predicts about 2,000 deaths today, and sadly it seems like we'll finish somewhere around that number. But that may not be the whole story. There is nuance within those numbers, as there always is in social science.
Tucker goes through a few old models that we're trying to predict into the near future regarding COVID-19, all of which seem to have turned up short. Fascinating. Where are you getting this data, Tucker? The IHME. Wait, you mean the organization that has been repeatedly criticized by the WHO for pretty sloppy craftsmanship and a lack of transparency in their studies? The same organizations that has struggled repeatedly with using guesswork to fill in data gaps? And that's just diseases we already know about, not even accounting for a brand spanking new virus that we aren't even sure of all of its symptoms yet. I'm not saying this to discredit the IHME. They do important work. They offer a check on any one group having too much influence over medical data. But this group in particular is not the hill to die on, Tucker. And I think these issues with their past credibility are, honestly, given more weight based on how important Tucker Carlson is emphasizing their findings here. Of course, it's not just the IHME. Lots of data is proving that the pandemic is not as deadly as we thought it was. So we should really be getting back on track to go back to life as normal. Isn't that right, Wisconsin?
Fox 6 asked the speaker if it was safe for Wisconsinites to go out to the polls. This was his response.
It sure is. I mean, once again, taking precautions, making sure that you protect yourself if necessary.
Yeah, perfectly safe. What is everyone so worked up about? We're just burning through our medical supplies to vote in an election that doesn't technically even decide anything. Why put things off for a couple months? And at least better organize this so we don't have to look like we're in the middle of the Andromeda strain. Well, here's why Tucker is focusing on the IHME. It's the organization that the White House is basing their projections off of. exclusively. Trump has publicly stated that the WHO is too pro-Chinese. So the fact that he has shut anything with their name on it out is not surprising. The only reason Trump is using the IHME is because they're based in America, even if it is a filthy SJW state like Washington. But does it really surprise you that Trump's America First plan keeps blowing up on his face? And your brain might have told you I misspoke there. I assure you, I did not. But wait, there's more. What was the most egregious death toll we have been modeled our entire overreaction on? Oh, right. The White House's model that not even the IHME can figure out where it came from. So the White House is going to start pushing the narrative that we need people back to work now because COVID-19 is not as serious as the models say it is. You can't trust the models. By the way, we wrote the models that you can't trust, and the scientific community is very skeptical of our models. But models are made by experts, not Trump, so they are thus bad. This is the plan. If we just incorporate all of these deaths into the plan, then nobody panics. Nobody panics, and the stock market starts going up again for the election. Killing is a choice. One life over another. And the White House is deliberately trying to create a situation where they can dismiss the conclusions about COVID-19 because they are deliberately overblowing the numbers and thus using their own bullshit to justify killing our own people.
If the virus is doing less systemic damage to our system than expected, then presumably we can begin to consider how to improve the lives of the rest, the countless Americans who've been grievously hurt by this, by our response to this. How do we get 17 million of our most vulnerable citizens back to work? That's our task.
The Joker tried to warn you. Now it is up to the chuds to listen. Hey everybody, if you liked that video, feel free to follow me on Twitter for updates. You can also donate to the channel's tip jar over on Ko-fi. You'll be seeing some of our social media stuff on the screen right now. All the important, very, very well-researched jokes that I sometimes think of. Yeah, I have no idea what the next video is, actually. I keep saying that I'm gonna do this one about, how the right is terrible at predicting the future, but then this stuff happens, and I kind of take a couple of the points from that video and put them in here because they fit, but not all the points fit. It's a weird thing. I'll see you guys in the next one.